Mark had been leading the way, followed by Damien, then Sean, then Mike, and finally I was manning the rear of our diaper brigade. I liken myself to the clowns who would follow behind the elephants and scoop up their poop during a circus parade. When Mark suddenly stopped dead in his tracks, each one of us in turn collided behind into one another like a train wreck. Mark had realized, as he opened and stepped through the door, that it was occupied by men and women and other boys and girls. "Mark, get moving." Damien groaned and shoved Mark into the bathroom. Everyone has heard of someone going ghost white, right? Well, that is how Mark looked. I stepped around the others to get a better look at him. All the blood had flowed right out of his pretty little head and into his shoes. I looked into his vacant eyes and saw the same Mark I'd seen that very first day, back in the school gym locker room. The bathroom in Gulliver's Mountain was laid out with a total of 16 stalls, 8 on either side of the room, with one of the other walls taken up by a bank of 4 diaper changing stations. The opposite wall from the fold-down changing stations was lined with one of those long trough-like sinks with waterfall-style faucets that jetted out from the wall above the sink. Thinking fast, I shoved Mark into the first unoccupied stall, hoping that once out of everyone's direct line of sight, he would snap out of his fear-induced coma and change his own diaper. Thankfully, Mike took the same cue and jumped into the stall next to Mark. I took off my backpack and, standing in front of the open stall door, I asked him, "You going to need help?" Mike grinned and said, "I can do it myself this time." From under the stall wall, Mark had reached over with a good night. Good, that meant Mark was okay after all. "Thanks, buddy," he whispered right at the wall divider. I then turned my attention to Sean, who was still standing next to the door and looking around the large room in wonder. Take away the fact that it was a bathroom, the sight was magnificent to behold. The brains behind Gulliver's Mountain had really put a lot of money into making the bathroom more than just functional, but visually pleasing as well. "Smells like a pine forest, huh?" Sean commented. "Ah, I hadn't noticed," I said, taking in a deep breath through my nose. "You're right," I commented. Damien, again, tugged on my coat. I turned to him. "Yeah, I know you need," but stopped short when I saw that he looked like he was about to cry. "What?" I asked him, and then realized why he looked so upset. "Oh, don't worry about it, buddy," I said, squatting down to his level. "That's why I brought all this stuff." I held out my backpack and gave it a shake. I then took his hand in mine and led him back to the changing tables, with Sean sticking right by my side. After I helped Damien up onto one of the changing stations, I asked Sean if he wanted my help. He blushed a bit, shook a fist at me and said, "Just give me one and I will do it myself." Right then, the door to the bathroom flew open, and it was because of the loud sound the door had made that I turned to look, as did just about everyone else in the bathroom. A dark-skinned woman walked in, pushing a smallish boy who was walking with his head hung so low, he could have tripped over it. I turned back around, reached into my backpack and found one of the diapers for Sean to use. As I handed it to him, I looked up and that same dark-skinned lady was standing right behind Sean. "Max," she said. "Mrs. Oric." I coughed in utter disbelief. I looked down at the boy that was standing beside her. His chin was still tucked down against his chest, but I hazard to guess that it was none other than Eben. "What are you doing here?" I stupidly asked. She looked down at the boy solemnly. "We were doing some shopping and had another accident," she said. And then Eben looked up, his face tear-streaked and shame-filled, but when he saw me, his eyes lit up as though powered by the light from heaven above. "Max!" Eben nearly shouted. "Hey there, Eben," I said with as big a grin as I could possibly have. "Wow, you've really grown." It wasn't true. Actually, he didn't look much bigger than the last time I saw him, but isn't that what you're supposed to say to little kids when you've not seen them in ages? I also noticed that Eben's mom didn't seem to be prepared, yet again, for this situation. Taking a chance that I was right, I smiled at her and said, "Hey, I have something here that I put together that might just be what you need." I unzipped the secret compartment of my backpack and pulled out one of the superhero emergency diaper changing kits. As I handed it to her, I said, "There should be everything you need in there, Mrs. Oric." Looked at it with puzzled wonder, then opened the station beside Damien and me and lifted Eben onto it. "Max, I got a new dog," Eben announced, and I found it amusing that all sadness had seemed to have evaporated from him, leaving only happiness at seeing me again. A new dog. What kind? Damien asked. Oh sorry, this here is Damien. I told Eben and his mother, Damien, this is Mrs. Auric, she is married to the mayor and this is her son, Eben. Damien was still lying down, but he waved politely and asked, what's a mayor? Someone who runs the city. I said, hoping it was enough of an explanation and didn't offend Mrs. Auric. Oh, he said, and then addressed Eben with a question, what kind of dog did you get? We got a collie. Eben proclaimed with excitement and pride, her name is Lady and she is bigger than me. He explained, while his mother opened the diaper kit and examined the contents. His mother pushed Eben back onto the table while Damien and Eben continued talking. I used to have a dog, but he ran away. Damien confessed. Eben took a deep, excited breath as he began, Lady can't run away because we got a way-high fence and she can run all around. Mrs. Auric began to unsnap the crotch of Eben's pants. I couldn't believe that a boy Eben's age was wearing pants like a small child would wear. When she had his pants fully opened and pulled up over his tummy, she unfastened his diaper and opened it up. She wasn't kidding. He'd had another serious blowout, however this time, his diaper had contained the mess. I wanted to ask Mrs. Auric why she would go out into public with a child in diapers and not bringing along a diaper bag, but I didn't think it would be polite to ask something like that. From behind me, I heard a stall door open and when I looked back, it was Mike. He was coming out of his stall. He looked both ways to make sure no one was looking. He then ran toward the trash can and threw away his diaper before running out of the bathroom without washing his hands. Max, this is the second time you've come to our rescue. Mrs. Auric said as she wiped at Eben's poop-covered backside. I had Damien cleaned up and diapered before she finished with Eben, so I took my time getting him dressed. All the while, Damien and Eben, though they couldn't actually see each other, continued talking about dogs. I heard another stall door open and glanced over my left shoulder, but it wasn't one of my friends, it was just some zit-faced older teenage girl with a seriously outdated hairdo. Mrs. Auric finished and handed the diapering kit back to me. Hang on a sec, I said, laying it on the changing table between Damien's legs. I opened my backpack again, took out 2 diapers and a few more of the pre-packaged wipes and replenished the kit before handing it back to her. I figure that one of these is a lot easier to carry around than a big clumsy diaper bag. I said. Oh Max, you are so incredibly sweet, she said, and then leaned forward and gave me a peck on the cheek. Unbeknownst to me, Sean and Mark had already finished and had made their way out of the bathroom. Mrs. Auric, Eben, Damien, and I went to the other end of the bath where Mrs. Auric and I washed our hands, tossed out the used diapers and then exited the bathroom together. Mrs. Auric thanked me again and Eben kept saying that he wanted Damien and me to come over and see his dog.